The question isn't docs, Wing rebellidits why they beat stayed echoes. Andrew Ryan's office door creaks open, revealing a shattered mural, *welcome to Rapture*. What did Cohen see in his art that broke Rapture's gods? 1953-1957, Rapture's golden age, plasmid wealth, Frolic's entertainmenta crafted horror to shatter the minds of the powerful. A therapy session for the broken. The question isn't why Cohen rebelled, it's why they stayed. Andrew Ryan's office door creaks open, Ryan's revealing a plasmid favored wealth artist, shattered mural, a psychological welcome to shatter the Rapture gauntlet minds of the powerful. What they called entertainment was a weaponized therapy session, a curated horror to shatter the minds of Rapture's elite. The unspoken truth, they weren't rebels, they were patients. Seeking solace in the very horror Cohen engineered, a masquerade of art, a scalpel of madness. Why did they stay? Because the cure fit the disease. Cohen's hands shaped Rapture's soul in pigment and shadow. The elite, clad in tailored defiance, wandered Frolic's halls as if they owned the very air. They laughed, drank, and marveled at shifting murals that bled color like open wounds. What did they see? A carnival. What did they miss? The slow bleed of their own sanity. The plasmid tycoons, their minds frayed by power and ambition, sought escape in Cohen's labyrinth. They did not notice the walls breathing, the music warping to mimic their own heartbeats. Frolic's golden age was a gilded trap. Between 1953 and 1957, Rapture's wealth poured into Cohen's domain, each coin a silent pact. The artist's tools were not brushes but scalpels. His games dissected the soul mirror mazes that fractured identity, orchestras that played in dissonant keys to unravel thought. The elite, in their arrogance, believed themselves immune. They did not ask why the laughter in the corridors never came from human throats. They did not flinch when their reflections in polished brass wore unfamiliar faces. Cohen's masterpiece was not a rebellion, it was a diagnosis. The wealthy, hollowed by their own hubris, became his patients. Their indulgence was the dosage. Each night they surrendered to the illusion of pleasure, unaware their minds were being unspooled like thread. The plasmid economy thrived on their fragility, every vial of power, a debt-paid insanity. What if the horror was not the art, but the cure? The elite danced in the dark, their minds dissolving, because Cohen's torment fit the rot they could not name. They stayed not for the thrill, but for the silence it brought to their inner chaos. A scalpel, after all, must cut deep to heal. And Rapture's architects, in their blindness, built their own pyre. The golden age of Rapture forged a god complex in its elite. Plasmids promised transcendence, bottled dominion over nature, flesh, and fate. They paid in blood and gold, believing progress could be bought, but Cohen's brushstroke rewrote the ledger. His art did not enhance, it excavated. What if the installations at Frolic were not rebellion, but a mirror? A hall of shattered reflections, each room a scalpel probing the festering core of their self-made divinity. The wealthy came for spectacle. They found their own nightmares, curated with surgical precision. Plasmids armored them against death. Cohen's work armored them against escape. He painted their greed in hues of guilt, their hubris in shades of rot. The more they clung to self-improvement as salvation, the sharper the guillotine of their self-realization. Anticipation hung thick in Frolic's air, not for pleasure but for collapse. Every mural whispered, * you are not whole, you are not invincible. * the elite laughed first, then trembled. Then unraveled, the economy of perfection had made them gods, the economy of truth made them patients. And in the theater of Cohen's design, the curtain never rose on redemption, only the slow, gilded suffocation of a mind devouring itself. Mirrored corridors stretch like a labyrinth, each reflection fractures the self. A whisper threads through the glass, * existential dread is the price of admission, * the elite paid in gold. They laughed at the cracked welcome mural, unaware the fissure mirrored their souls. Cohen's audio logs hum beneath the floor, a dirge for the arrogant. * you are not whole, * they chant, * you are not free, * the cathedral of Comstock's hubris looms outside. Inside, Frolic's halls unravel certainty. A patron dances, their shadow 1,000 screaming faces. Andrew Ryan's office, a shrine to reason, could not shield him from this. The art did not rebel, it diagnosed, a therapy for the terminally delusional, a scalpel slicing through the illusion of control. What if the horror was not the design but the cure? The wealthy came for transcendence. They found a mirror. And in its depths a question: who is the artist Harith man with the brush, or the mind that let the brush speak? The logs whisper of a man who painted with poison. His palette, guilt, paranoia, the slow drip of self-awareness. Let them see the rot, he murmured, not as observers but as subjects. The elite arrived for the spectacle. They left with their reflections screaming back. Fort Frolic's halls did not entertain, they excavated. A carousel of grotesques, each act a scalpel. Laughter sharpened to a blade, music that hummed with buried screams. The wealthy, draped in gilded detachment, found their shadows alive, dancing, judging. Cohen's masterpiece was not the chaos, it was the mirror held to their complicity. Every performance a verdict, every intermission a pause before the sentence. Art is the scalpel, he hissed in one recording, and the patient is the host. Did he cure them, or did he merely let the disease speak? The logs offer no respite, only the sound of a man who knew madness was not a symptom but a language, and Rapture's elite. They had only ever learned to speak in whispers. Now they were forced to shout. The carousel turned, the masks bled. And the question lingers, when the art outlived its creator, who was ever truly in control. The Splicer War began in 1958. Cohen's mind split like Rapture's foundations. Fort Frolic's halls no longer echoed with laughter. Therapy rooms became confessionals. Patients faced mirrors that showed not reflections but regrets. A diplomat's hands bled with the ghosts of drowned children. A banker's throat choked on the screams of bankrupt families. The art did not judge, it remembered asterisk. Cohen's designs twisted, the carousel sobbed. The puppet theater staged crimes its patrons had buried. Each performance ended in collapse. Each visitor left a whisper. The wealthy came for escapism. They found their own prisons. No one was immune, not the arrogant, not the careful. The therapy worked too well. By 1960, Fort Frolic's doors closed, not to the public, to the city. Splicers dragged survivors through its corridors, their own. The war had a new weapon. The installation that broke men now broke armies. Cohen's name was erased. His work remained. What if the art was never about rebellion? What if it was a mirror for a city built on lies? Rapture's elite came seeking pleasure. They found their sins made flesh. The final joke. The therapy session that cured the patient and the therapist alike. The war began. The city drowned, but in the deep, Fort Frolic still turns, waiting, remembering. Jack stepped into the wreckage of Fort Frolic. The mirrors still hung, cracked but gleaming. The music still played, though the orchestra had long since drowned. Cohen's final act was no carnival, it was a scalpel. The elite who once laughed at his absurdities now screamed in private chambers, their reflections warping to mimic their deepest shames. Each room a psyche, each corridor a memory. The walls bled confessions, Rapture crumbled above. Below, Cohen's patience unraveled. A tycoon faced his bankrupt soul in a hall of shattered ledgers. A socialite danced with her dead children in a ballroom of hollow-eyed mannequins. The city's architects, now its prisoners, clawed at walls that whispered their worst secrets. Did Cohen cure them, or did he become the surgeon they needed? The music swelled as the ocean rose. Jack, the avatar of their sins, wandered the maze, both executioner and experiment. The final chord rang. Fort Frolic's heart stopped, but its echoes remain, a labyrinth without exits. A gallery of ghosts, the elite still wander, their minds fused with the architecture. Their screams are the creaks in the floorboards. Their regrets are the shadows in the corners. What therapy requires a city's collapse? What art demands a god's death? Fort Frolic was never about rebellion. It was a mirror for the soul of Rapturepolis to a kill. The deep still turns, waiting, remembering, and in the dark the mirrors watch. Cohen's mirror was no act of defiance. The elite who wandered Fort Frolic's halls sought mastery over their minds, their desires, their very souls. What they found was the sickness they weaponized, refracted, amplified, made to feast on them. Each chamber a scalpel, each illusion a confession. Objectivism's hunger for control had carved a labyrinth where logic dissolved into madness. Did they think themselves immune? Their laughter echoed as they unraveled. The art that promised transcendence became a sieve, draining their sanity through cracks they did not see. Cohen, the architect, became the first casualty, his vision consumed by the void head opened. The system he mocked swallowed his bones. Fort Frolic did not rebel, it diagnosed. The elite's therapy was a dirge, a requiem for the self they'd tried to forge in fire. Their obsession with perfection was the scalpel that dissected them, piece by piece. And when the last of them fell, the mirrors stopped watching. The deep does not forget. It only waits. The silence of Fort Frolic hums still. Its shattered mirrors gape like empty sockets, reflecting not the self, but the rot beneath. The same music that once lured Rapture's elite now loops in fractured echoes waltz rhythms warped into something feral, a soundtrack for unraveling. Here, art was not expression. It was a scalpel. Cohen's dancers, those hollow-eyed phantoms, did not perform. They stalked, their movements a language of disintegration. Each pirouette a question, asterisk how many layers of sanity must peel before the soul screams, asterisk the elite came seeking transcendence. They found their own neuroses sculpted into walls, their ambitions twisted into traps, a chessboard where every move was predetermined, a masquerade where masks clung asterisk too tightly asterisk. And the laughter, oh the laughter, not mirth but a feedback loop of their own delusions, amplified until it scoured the mind raw. Today, the ruins whisper to those who build their utopias on fragile ideologies. Fort Frolic's truest masterpiece, proof that even paradise, when gilded with hubris, becomes a psyche as guillotine. The deep does not forget, it only waits, and it hums. The hum deepens, a door groans, footsteps echo where none should be. Cohen's masterpiece was not a rebellion, it was a scalpel. Fort Frolic's gilded halls carved sanity from Rapture's elite like flesh from bone. Mirrors reflected not faces but fractures. Music swelled to drown screams not yet uttered. Each chamber a confession, each illusion a verdict. The elite paid coins for catharsis, unaware they were the playthings. Cohen's audio log bleeds through the static. Asterisk this is not entertainment. This is a reckoning. Asterisk a reckoning for what? The madness they buried beneath champagne and hubris. The narrator's voice dissolves into the whisper. Silence follows, but the walls still hum. And in the dark, the question lingers. Did Cohen break them, or did he finally let them breathe? What if the masks they wore were shackles? Other playgrounds hid chains in their gold. Was choice ever real, or just another thread in Cohen's